This is day 620 of the Arukh HaShulchan. If you would like to sponsor or come share more of the Arukh HaShulchan, it would be greatly appreciated. Please contact me directly. Today we're doing a Siman Shin Sama Gimel, Mem through Mem Vav. Mem. A street can't use lechi or kora unless their house is opening into yards, opening into the mavli. Shnei chatzeres la 2 yards into the mavli. Shnei batim l'kol chatzer, and 2 houses on every chatzer. The town reason is the kemish d'zeshi kilim mavli neged chatzer. That was what they were lenient by mavli relative to a chatzer. She dai b'lechi or kora, that it suffices to have only either one lechi instead of 2, or a beam. Having mitam ribuya during mashimushpo, what? It's because since there are many people there, counterintuitively perhaps, they use it very little. In other words, use it basically only for egress and exit, and not for other purposes. So therefore, and to kokach, you don't have to fence it in so completely. Like your own sim base. If there aren't 2 yards and 2 houses per chatzer, you don't have a lot of people living there using it. It's like the courtyard itself. Also, there shouldn't be in any of the openings of these chatzeros to the mavlin, of the houses to the chatzer, less than 4 tvachim. In other words, for an opening less for pachos mi of arba tvachim, for opening less for tvachim, no actual class not considered to be a proper opening. Also, it has to be that the people who live there require an eruv. Such as they eat there. The place to eat, that's required. That's what defines the place for an eruv. Much is part of Siman Shin Ayin, like it's going to explain later on. Even if one house belongs to the father and the second to a son, but Ben Makaba Prasim Elav, and the son receives his food from his father. Im Ochav Itnatsu eats by himself. Tzrichim Eruv, they require an Eruv. Sh'avacha Beisova Ben Bayas Hashniya, when the father eats in his house and the son in his house. That's in order there should be many people living there. In Ribu Tashmishin, with many usages. And in direct, in not direct correlation, in inverse correlation. The more usage of the chatz, the less usages there are in the mavli. So therefore, those hold the air has to be specifically through the mavli. Meaning when the chatzer is not open to each other. Because if they're open to each other, they can air through their yards, which open to each other, without coming out to the mavli. They're all considered one house and 1 yard. They argue, even if they're open to each other and you make the eruv through the chatzeros, it's permissible. Yes, excuse me. So the the first opinion holds that in order to make a ribu tashmishin in the chatzeros, so then wherever it's possibly doing the air through the mavli, make the air through the mavli, because that way, but people are not going to have people are going to do more and more stuff in the chatzer, and if so, that is. When the chatzeros are not open to each other, you should go to the mavli, and if they're open to each other, then in fact you can do to the chatzeros and exclude the mavli, because they're like one house and one chatzer. In the Russian Torah, and Mordechai hold that even though open to each other, you and you Arab there, you can. I thought I got this before. Those who require that the Erev should be through the Mavli. When the Chatzeros don't open to each other. It's Pashut. If they're open to each other, it's obvious also. Have a kluk kabayis echad chotzer echad. So obvious. So what's the argument? V'rosh v'tor Mordechai chokim b'zeh. So the few psuchos zu lezu, even though with each other, arvin derech chatzeros mutter. Zeh mikra gam ken abshid yurin. Okay, after looking at the Shulchan, I think I get it now. Let's go back again. לכן יש, מצליחים שיהיה דווקא דרך המובי. Shine שאין רציות פסוכות זו לזו. If the two chatzeros open to each other, they're not considered to be two chatzeros. One chatzer. And it doesn't no longer has the halacha b'mavui, because there's only one chatzer, and only these people, same people using the mavui, are using the chatzer, because two chatzers open to each other. So therefore, there's no mute durim in the mavui, no mute of tashmishim in the mavui. Because if they open to each other, they can make an air of their chatzer. So that's a mavui. So like one house and one chatzer, then there's no mavui, because the mavui requires two houses on each two chatzeros. For us to Mordechai chokim is that they argue even the chatzeros open to each other, marrying their chatzeros, and you could make an air for the chatzeros. Mutter, it's still mutter. It's also called lots of people living in the chatzeros independently, and therefore the mavui is going to see less use. Mishnah says in the issue which is Rabbanan, you can be mako like the Rosh and at all. That even chatzeros could theoretically make even with each other, you could still have the kulas of the mavui on the mavui. Yisrael Dafka. Now, in order to make this, have them more diurim and on the chatzeros, in order that the mavui should be used less significantly, so that you don't just, it's not necessarily Jews, you have to have two chatzeros, shnei batim shekol chatzer, and the two batim in each chatzer. If you tzido echad eina Yehudi, meaning one side is non-Jews, tzido echad Yisrael, the other side is Jews, mutter, it's permissible, dat tashmishim yesh, you have more tashmishim in the chatzer, which diminishes the amount of tashmishim in the mavui. Dat tashmishim yesh, right? You have the tashmishim in the chatzer. B'im ein b'batim chatzer psuchim b'socho, if you don't have houses and courtyards, in other words, two houses and two courtyards open to the chatzer, dino kil chatzer. I'm sorry, to the mavui, two houses on each of two chatzeros, then the mavui gets the status of chatzer. So pas arbo shnei pasim, need to have a plank of 4 tvachim or two strips, 2 rods in order to be matzah. And so there's missing any of the conditions we listed previously. A mavui which does not have at its opening with the 3 tvachim, even though inside the mavui is very wide, but it's very wide, but then it narrows on the 4th side, so it only has opening less than 3 tvachim. So you need straight to get in and out of it. Doesn't require any fix. It's not considered to be an open wall, it's a closed wall. Some say at the 4th tvachim you don't require any tikkun, because only 4 tvachim is the proper shear of a Pesach. That's the latter opinion. Is that opinion Rosh, Rosh and the Tur? The first opinion is that of the Rambam. That's Rambam. Pashu the Gam b'Chatzer Adin Kain l'Dei Rishona, and it's obvious that according to the Rambam, the same halacha applies by Chatzer. Has no less than 3, then you don't have to do anything. Aval Yeshua Mecholk Mavui v'Chatzer, but the Yeshua holds no that a Mavui, which has in order to be considered Mavui, has to have an opening because 4 tvachim. But Chatzer Abish Ein Ba'arba Tvach. Oh, well, you say like this. Sorry, according to you say there Rishona that. The Dei Rishon, which was by 3 tvachim, so that applies both to the Chatzer and to the mavui. Right? The Yeshrim would say that you have to have 4 tvachim in order to make a tikkun by mavui. hold the b'chotzer arba she'en bo arba tvachim tzor tikun. By chotzer, even if it isn't 4 tvachim, even if it's less than 4 requires a tikun. Chem machal regarded this seems to be the explicit gemara daf yud base. Mishabur brings on Moses beisayt Darkei Moshe. If the primary halacha is like the Rambam, or it can be lenient like the others, the Rav and the Rosh and the Tur. And he says, and Imar Machin, like the first opinion, that's only where inside it's 4 tvachim wide. It only gets narrow at the opening. But if the whole mavli is not 4 tvachim wide, you certainly can be lenient. Okay, mem base. But we said chotzer has to be precisely width the same as length. It's precisely square. If it's more long than it's square, long than it's wide, it's like a mavli. Need to blech v'yikara, and the v'yikara suffices. Well, this is a little difficult to understand. We have asked, how can you regard it as a mavli? Then we say, by definition, a mavli is something where there are 2 houses and 2 chatzeros. But here it's Rabbeinu Ramah. The Ramah answers, since it's not adjacent to Rishus Harabim, but it's open to a mavli, and the mavli is open to Rishus Harabim. So therefore, it's Akan Lashono. Therefore, it's okay. What does that mean? Meaning, this actually said by a mavli that if there are no houses or yards open into it, Alechi Akor does not suffice, because then that's because it's next to Rishus Harabim. So you need to have a stronger heker. But the chotzer need a mavli, even though we categorize it as a mavli, but came to some Rishus Harabim, it's not adjacent to Rishus Harabim. The batim chatzeros do not require it to have batim chatzeros in order to have that leniency of lechi okara, but rather have that leniency in regardless. Long brackets here. The goes with Taisvis, so the Ramasli, you base and basically Maskal, batim is El Shalom. Mishum the Mavi Korv Rishus Harabim Chotzer, because the Mavi is closer to Rishus Harabim than a Chotzer is. Come by batim chatzeros. So the Mavi requires batim and chatzeros in order to be less usage in the Mavi in order to be lenient. Akan Lashono. Come on, Afagad the Bechol Pratim Hechmarnu B'Chatzer. So Yosef, even though in all details we're more Machir Chotzer. We're not see base like we wrote previously. Mekom Kam Befrat Ze Ein Okay. In this detail, we're not machmir. The ain't shear l'archayos, and there's no shear, which defines a length greater than width. The afilu b'mat yoser even our slightly longer. Mikra yoser but still go longer than its wide. But that Magish brings down loches evi machlekes b'roch v'yoser arko. The Magish brings down machlekes. What about the other way around? If its width is greater than its length. Doesn't make a difference whether its width is longer than height than length. The length is longer than width. By definition, it's not considered to be a mob if it's not perfectly square. Etc. Mishabur brings the name Mishnah. There's no chiluk between square and so where its width is longer than its length. Then he holds its dafka has to be length longer than width. So I'm not sure. I guess you define length and width by how it lines up in the street. I'm not sure exactly how you define that in a way which doesn't make it, which makes it definite. What's the length and what's the width? Some say today. All the mavos we make at Tzuras Pesach. The Chom Mavos Shalom Yesh Lem Din Chatzeros. All of our mavos have the din of Chatzeros. And the simple minhag is to make a Tzuras Pesach where the chevel the string is tied onto the is tied across the width of the mavi. But din chevel zu ein a this is not like the beam of a lechi. Shein rachel tefach, because its width is not a tefach. Below my name time, so it's a pesach. It's the only words because of Tzuras Pesach. The Mahanim of Afilu Begemi, which works even on top, even as a thin strand of hemp or something. Can't Yeshua Lami Takas Chevel Shnei Kanim, so therefore you have to be careful to put under the rope these two posts. The Yevayim Masrat Vachim, which is 10 Vahim, Mechubayim Takas Chevel, underneath the string. Vaz Mahani Afilu B'Movi and foolish B'Toras Pesach, and then it works even by a Movi which goes straight through from one side down to the other. As the Tzuras Pesach, or even the courtyard. B'Chol Makom Tzuras Pesach, Mahani K'Moshtam L'El, Sof Siman Shin Sav Beis HaKal L'Shono. And he played with Tzuras Pesach works, which is basically everywhere according to the Ashkenazim at least. Memdal, now the Arukh HaShulchan wants to tackle this Ramah. What exactly is he saying? I don't know what it's like during the Ramah's time. But the doors become several generations prior. Whatever was in the time of the Ramah was also different in the time of the Gemara. That's why they have no halacha of Mavi, and the Machmir everything is the Chotzer. Even more than the Chotzer. Since these chatzeros are literally adjacent to Rishus Harabim, the Chmir also some Pesach. They're machmir to Rishus Pesach. Mishnah Berurah explains that in our day and age the halacha is different. Well, I should first let's finish Arukh HaShulchan here, then go back there. V'yesh kasav shal you at some coloring mukafas choma. Those say that by them all their towns were surrounded by walls. V'yoshav sofukaf, and they were settled, and then they were enclosed. V'yisay made a pesach rochav asar amos v'yoser, and therefore if the opening is not more than 10 amos, daibishnei pasim chotzer should be sufficed with two strips like a chotzer. Yesh kasav shavil emu kavas choma din chotzer. Those who write that even if it doesn't have a wall, it's sufficed like a chotzer. It should be like a chotzer. But nevertheless, you need to Pesach even for less than 10. It seems very difficult. Okay, so Mishnah Berurah says, why is our day and age a little different? And this is what he says. Because in our streets, we do not have houses and yards opening up to them. Therefore, they can't be permitted with a lechi or koira like a mavli. And even the chotzer, where it suffices with two l'chaim on the two sides without a tzuras Pesach. Nevertheless, since sometimes the mavui is foolish, in other words, it goes straight through from one side to another of the area, and then you still have to be machmir that should require tzuras Pesach, even when there aren't houses and chatzeros open to that street, because at its opening it's open to Rishus Harabim or Carmelis, or sometimes it's more than 10 amos. And with that, certainly, even the chotzer requires a tzuras Pesach according to the letter of the law. So therefore, they always made tzuras Pesach. That's the end quote from the Mishnah Berurah. Fine. What does the Arukh HaShulchan say? Mem hey. In the ancient times, the Jews would sit in the part of the city by themselves. Bayanikra, Rechavi is called the Jew Street. Morocco, like it says today in Morocco. But in our countries, we're scattered throughout the city together with the non-Jews. We don't have a mavli. We only have houses and yards. From the yards, you go out to the public thoroughfare. There are no private streets. And Lithuania, there are hundreds and thousands of houses. They have no yard whatsoever. You immediately go from your house into Rishus Harabim. Most of our streets are more than amos wide. The Tzuras Pesach in all the corners, not sure what he means by corners, you have to make. I guess because they're more intense. I guess it means the not the corners, but the perimeter. You have to make because it's more than 10 amos. But but there are places in every city where the street is small, like a path. Where at the end of the city, where there aren't 10 amos in that street, or that path, pedestrian path. But stay pasim, they need two pasim. The ain mavi at slain and mikama tamim shnis baru, because we don't have a mavi in our day and age for several reasons which we explained. V'anosim tzuras pesach b'chol miktzos here, and we make tzuras pesach in at all the perimeter of the city. Maminim also kotzer mamash, you put it at the end of the city, literally. V'shloya panim mimakom tzuras pesach ad abatim ogdorim yosim yeser amos. and that there shouldn't be any open space from the source of Pesach to the houses or to the fences, which is more than 10 amos. I guess there's no gap because then you'll have a gap of more than 10 amos. Vima field posts me as certain if it's even less than 10, become such they pass, we still have to put up 2 posts. The source of Pesach Ola La Pass, the post of the cable of Tzuras Pesach goes up to the cable to the side post. So no, he says Kanshal Tzuras Pesach Ola Pass. No, he's saying the end of the Tzuras Pesach is itself the one pass on one side, the lechi on the one side of the opening, and the other side you should mean pass sheni connected. It's about him. You put it on the fence on the other side of the house. On the other side, another pole. So you have 2 poles opposite each other, the pole here and the pole on the fence, and that is two passing. The came should be cut to ear in the club of close to ear. Shatzurose Pesach Makifin also. Since it's at the edge of the city, it's not included in the totality of the city. The Tzuras Pesach surrounds it. I'm not sure why it's so here, what's going on here, but this story about where there's a gap in the wall of between 4 and 10 amos, 4 and 10 amos. You need to have 2 pasim if we hold there's no status of Movi Bisman Hazeh. But that, became Bachok, so say Makom Shesh Pirtzu, Chutzla, Bachos Yoser Mieser Amos, if there's any opening like that, which is less than 10 amos, Die B'Shnei Pasim is enough to have the 2 rods. V'shuta Yoser Mieser Amos, more than 10 amos, Sorg Tzuras Pesach, that requires Tzuras Pesach. V'shir Eser as Amos Vim the same as Russia. In Russia, the measure is Hushnei Sanjish V'Chetzi. Like Reb Chaim Noah, it's 15 feet like the Reb Chaim is 20 feet, and we're marking like Reb Chaim Noah. Zalkol is such an Shusram Gomor, Kvisha Raklu Mzeb Simen, Shin Mem Hey. It's all based on the assumption that we don't have a Tzuras Pesach, actual Shusram in our day and age, like we explained in Simen Shin Mem Hey. Ayin Sham. Says, Brackets among Ramsey Gon Chav Zayin, Gam Pachas Mut Tzuras Pesach. Says even it's less than 10 years Tzuras Pesach, V'Eino Agim Kain, that's not the minhag. Whatever happened in times of the Ramah, it's not the minhag nowadays. Dono Doni Kechatza Gamakula, we consider like a Chatza also a Kula. Very much time will come on, Sin Shin Samachesi Vav. The question is whether you can be so far and so lenient as to say that since our mavos are not perfectly square, you our chatzeros are not perfectly square, so therefore we have line having a status of a mavli. That's many poskim hold that way, which is more than the Arukh HaShulchan. The Arukh HaShulchan says we can't, even though our shapes are regular, we have to assume that we're chatzeros, not mavos, because we're seeing other conditions of mavos. But others say the opposite. Even though we're lacking conditions to be a mavli, so we're chatzeros. But according to Arukh HaShulchan here, certainly the Chatchila, when you have a gap of between 4 targets and amos, put 2 pasim on one on each side, and you don't need a Tzuras Pesach. Memvav. V'zek vanis bar the Tzuras Pesach kol shagabeim ein tzarich le'agab b'konar shebetztadam. We already said in the Tzuras Pesach the lintel does not have to touch the side post. There were some protrusions come out from the walls and they go up 10 feet from the ground. And not more than 3 feet off the ground. You can remind them that they should be the side post of Tzuras Pesach side. This also applies to strips, unless they're more than 10 amos, as we wrote later on. Because should gojim by maginos, it's certainly the sticks we use in order to make a it's interesting because he says pasim pachos mia eser amos, but I think there's a problem with already more than 4 amos. Maybe we'll see when we get the shin samachay. Because should gojim by maginos, it's certainly the sticks which used to make fences around gardens. Shein tov and the pasim, they're good for pasim. We need to have pasim. Slide Tzuras Pesach and the side post of Tzuras Pesach. And the wire or string they put on top should be directly opposite these protrusions. Okeneged kanim mamish, or opposite the rods. Kadesh lo yem minatzad, so it shouldn't be a tzur spes minatzad. Yesh nishma, those who say shetzorich lizark shemosayah kon elyon al gagag shel is a binyan. So those who say when you stretch the upper wire on the roof of some building, umoscho keneged kanim hatstadim, and you are stretching across the roof for to other rods, other side posts, which you put at the sides of the wall. Shote blitas agag shkoin kapaz mitachas hakona elyon. The protrusion of the roof, it sounds like a canopy, should not be under the wire. You can't bleed them of seconds ben elyon uvein hatstadim, because then that protrusion interrupts between the top and the side posts. Yeah, so but he means like this. He means we have you have this as your side post, your lechi, and then you have a string going on top. It's going on top, but between you have the end of a roof, like the awning or canopy. That's no good, because you can't say good asik through the roof or through the canopy, whatever it is. Those argue maybe Ryan Mikipa Shigul Mapsik Bemitzad Elyon Benat Stadim, to being arrived from a rounded an archway, where it would seem that the archway divides between the sides and the top, because you have that archway in the middle. Mutter nevertheless permitted. This seems to know the interruption is not a problem. So it takes the Shabbos. But you can draw a distinction. The archway is all one structure. But here, but here where the roof is a different structure, have a hefsek, it's interruption. Nevertheless, what would be the reason to be mechalik? I'm not sure. That's pretty shocking to me. There's a very good reason to be mechalik, which you just mentioned, that the good asik is interrupted. And Mishabur, in fact, does say that. There's an interruption between the post and the wire, so that's not source of Pesach. I guess it's talking about small. Arukh HaShulchan is talking about small protrusion. So therefore, it's not really like a roof and interrupt. So it could be seen perhaps as an extension, source of Pesach, like you have sometimes with the utility boxes on the side of a pole, which the pole starts below the box and is after the box, or perhaps even stops at the box, but it's not big enough in order to undermine the good asik. Maybe that's the case it's talking about. But let's say today, Raderi Shoina, somebody wants to fulfill the first opinion, that shouldn't be any interruptions. He should make a hole in that protrusion where below them the post stand. The post on the side. So it should be directly underneath the upper cable without an interruption. Those who forbid if the side posts are 3 away from the wall, such as saying the pasuk gavna, which is possible in such a case. We said inside that the source of Pesach has a loch of a wall, so it's not asa here the hagisa bagisa mebatale. It says here by the brackets, Shabbos, he also is lenient.